Hello, I am Miss Foth, and I am your child's teacher in third grade this year. I just wanted to make this video to explain to you guys some of the things we're going to be doing in writing this year, so you guys have a little bit of understanding about it, and I also ask a little bit of help from you guys to encourage your students to do some writing at home, and so I'll give you ways to do that. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so writing and technology. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the stages of writing. So the pre-literate stage is the first one. So this is like the scribble stage. It resembles drawing large circular strokes in random marks that don't resemble print or communicate a message. The symbolic stage is another stage within the pre-literate, and their random strokes are marked pictures that have a message. And then the directional scribble is scribbling left to right from those directions and is intended as writing that communicates a message or idea. So this is the first stage of writing. There's a couple stages, and within those, I will be looking at your child's writing and trying to decide where they're at, where they should be by the end of the year, where they should be at the beginning of the year, and I'll just get to monitor their progress throughout third grade. So the second stage is emergent. So students are stringing letters and making groups of letters, and they're labeling pictures and creating environmental print. And then there's transitional. The students have letter to word representation, and they are frequently have the first and letter represented and medial letter sounds. So they might not have everything in the middle, but they have the first and last letter for sure. And then emergent is the beginning phase of writing. Students are writing, and this also is sentence writing and the 6 traits of writing that we'll talk about later. So the Elements of Writing workshop that we're going to do this year has 4 parts to it. So the first part of writing will be me just giving a mini lesson to them. They're short and concise, 5 to 10 minutes roughly. They'll be about maybe the writing process one day, or the editing skills, what quality of good writing looks like, some different things. It might be talking about, oh, let's make sure we're using descriptive words, and what are those? And it's just going to be based on our students, what they need, what they should go back to and look in their writing. So this will kind of vary depending on what the students are needing at that time. So then they will have time every day just to write. So depending on our class schedule this year, students will be getting around 30 minutes to write, give or take some, depending on how long the class is. So they'll be able to draft, plan, reread, revise, proofread, and talk with their peers during this time. The talking with their peers is like getting feedback, not just having random conversations. So this time, as students are going to be just on their own, so maybe we're doing a narrative story, informational, whatever we're doing, this is their time just to write their story and work on that, so that later we can share it. The second stage, or the third stage, is conferencing. So this is with me. So the students, while they're writing, I will be going around conferencing with the students for a couple minutes. I'll get to each student probably about once a week, maybe more depending on what stage they're in, if they're needing more help, less help, etc. So this is when I will differentiate instruction by working one-on-one with each student. So maybe one student needs help with punctuation, but another student needs help with getting more describing words in. That's where I will differentiate what instructions and what I'll help them, and we'll be able to talk about their work and what they did really well, what they need to work on, what they should go back and edit in their story, stuff like that. Sharing, I'm super excited about this part. I love this part. Students will share their writing with the class if they want to, and then their peers will be who will be giving them feedback, so they can give and get feedback during that time. So instead of the feedback always coming from me as their teacher, they can get feedback from their peers, which will help not only just the peer that's getting feedback, but it also will help our students think, oh, maybe I should go back and look at that in my writing too. So that is our Elements of Writing workshop. We'll be doing that almost every single day, unless we have something to do. So these are the text types that I mentioned a little bit ago. So informational is the first one that we'll probably do. This is when students are writing informational pieces. They're trying to inform the reader of something. So it could be how to stay warm in the winter, like wear your gloves or your hat, stuff like that. Or it could be how to make a campfire, or anything that is informing the reader of something. It's got to be true. It's informing our reader of how to do something. The next one is narrative. So students could write about any true story that has happened in their life. So this is kind of like a memory kind of. So, but the students have to include characters, dialogue, descriptive words. The stories need to include a beginning, middle, and end. So this is when we'll really work on sequencing and making sure they're using dialogue and that they have quotation marks in it. So this is where they're really going to be editing their story to make it more descriptive or to use more words, stuff like that. Or not more words, more characters talking, more descriptive words, stuff like that. Opinion. So students write persuasive pieces. So some could be like, which season is the best? And the students have to say, I think fall is the best because, and then they fill in that blank. Another could be what the best sports team is in their opinion, or the best kind of cookie. Anything that is trying to persuade someone to either like that thing or do something, anything that's really trying to persuade them, or it could just be, this is what I like, this is my opinion. It might not be, I'm persuading you to do this. It could be just, my favorite team is the Chiefs because blah, blah, blah. So our aspects of language arts, the first one is reading. So it's communicating, through reading text. So students could be reading their library books or directions on their papers, and they'll be reading it and obtaining that information. The next one is writing. So the students, they'll be writing each day, as I said, such as writing their planner, writing their names, the date, writing during writing time, stuff like that. So then listening. So this is when students are not talking, they're just listening. So it could be when I'm giving directions, teaching a lesson, informational videos that we'll use sometimes in class, stuff like that, when they're obtaining their information through listening instead of reading it or speaking it, stuff like that. So viewing, this is information we take in when we look at things. So that could be a slideshow or a computer show and tell. It could be just a picture that they're looking at. And instead of hearing what's going on in the picture or reading what's going on in the picture, they have to look at it and try to visually picture what they're seeing and process the information just by looking at it. Speaking, this is when students are talking to others, or they could be talking to themselves. Like sometimes in writing, I might have them just read their stories to themselves so that they can hear it. Instead of just writing and reading their head, they can actually hear it out loud. So this could be like having a conversation with a friend, or asking the teacher for help, or reading their writing to themselves to listen to it. Visual representation, these are nonverbal gestures. So these are like body language or facial expressions, or like I talk with my hands a lot, stuff like that. Right now, facial expressions can be kind of hard due to having to wear masks, but teaching the kids that we have our eyes and like our eyebrows, we can still see facial expressions from those too. So our English language learners, some challenges that they might have, there's lots more. These are just some key ones that I'm going to talk about. They may have less vocabulary knowledge due to having a wide range of words that they know in Spanish and in English. Sometimes they know what the Spanish word is or the French word, whatever language they speak. They might know the word in their first language, but they might not know it in English. So there's a little bit of vocabulary knowledge that they might be missing. Difficulty spelling, because the sentence structure or the word structure, how we pronounce things, are different than in their language. And then homonyms and homographs, meaning and use of idioms, they don't always understand them if they don't have the same ones in their first language. And then sentence structure, I know a little bit of Spanish. When I learned it, it was difficult for me to learn a sentence structure because it's so much different than in English. So I can't imagine how much harder it would be learning the English structure from a different language as well. So sometimes that's a challenge as well. So some ways that I'm going to try this year to help my English language learner students is explicit instruction and scaffolding for each of my students individually instead of all of my ELLs, like scaffolding my instruction to meet the needs of my students and what they might need help with. And then story templates. So maybe I would write, my favorite book is, and then they fill that sentence in. So they have part of the sentence structure there. They can read it, and then they just fill in the blank with what it is. So that's something I'm going to try this year as well. I'm going to try that at the beginning of the year and try and work my way out of it since we are in third grade. They've had about 3 years to start learning this. So hopefully we can start to loosen the reins a little bit and have them do it on their own. But we're going to start with using my story templates. And then mimic writing. This is when the teacher writes something down and the students copy it down. This will be all of my students will do this. It won't just be the ELLs. So I'll write something on the board if it's really important or if we're taking notes, stuff like that. And then all of the students will copy exactly word for word what I've said onto their papers. So handwriting this year, I'm super excited. I love cursive and I love teaching it. So I'm excited to teach our third graders how to learn or how to write cursive. It's really important for them to practice the form for this. So if you're practicing at home, which I highly encourage, make sure that they're not picking up their pencils, that their paper is tilted a little bit to the side, and that they're going the right way. The main thing I want to enforce is just don't picking up their pencils a lot different than writing manuscript. And so a lot of students, not a lot, some students struggle with that aspect of it just because it's so new. This isn't necessarily handwriting, but keyboarding is another thing we're going to work on this year. And so using home row is really important for that, so that students get used to using our 8 fingers and then our 2 thumbs for the space bar, so that they will know that for the rest of their lives, so that they can get used to it now so they don't have to break the habit later. So these are some ways that I'm going to encourage writing at school. So we're going to have a morning message every morning. So it might be a question or that they have to answer, or what'd you do this weekend? And they just have to type a little thing like, oh, this is what I did, Miss blah, blah, blah. Or it could be, what's your favorite fall activity? Stuff like that, just to get them to type a morning message. I'll get that. I'll be able to read it, and I'll be able to kind of see how they're doing keyboarding as well. Having students write with a pen pal is something I want to do, whether it's just another student, another school in another state, another country, whatever it is. I want to have students have a pen pal this year so that they can learn how to write letters to somebody. It's also going to help them to encourage them to write neat so that the other student can read it. And it's just going to it's a fun way to write. So hopefully they will enjoy that. And then for writing time, they're all going to have a journal, and that's what they're going to be writing in every day. So I'll be encouraging them to write their stories, their good things, all of that into their journal so that I can go back and look at it. They can go back and look at it. And it's just a little more writing for them, so more practice with that. At home, though, some ways that you can encourage writing. When you're planning on going shopping, if you make a shopping list, have your son or daughter write that for you. It might take a little bit longer, but it's going to be really good practice for them to start writing more at home too, and it not just be at school. They could help you make a supper menu if you're into meal planning, what you're going to have each night. Have them help you with that. Have them write for you. You could have them write about what they could come home and 5 minutes or less, just write something that you did in school that day, or write something that happened during recess, whatever it is. Just have students write about what they did that day when they get home from school, or maybe you could do it before bed and they could write about something they did all day, not just at school. For keyboarding, have them type out a checklist of things to do that day. Maybe this could be something we did at school one day, or it could be like Saturday, you've got lots to do. Have them just type out that checklist of things to do that you need to get done today so that one, they can visually see it, but two, they're also working on typing. With that, just again, make sure that they're using home row and not like pecking or using one hand or whatever, that they actually have their hands on home row. That is all I have for you today about what we're going to be doing in writing. Like I said, I'm super excited to have your students in my class this year. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to me, please.